Jim never once asked Vito to be someone else. No lies required, no performance, nothing to prove to anybody. For a few months in 2006, Vito Spatafore had something almost nobody else in this entire show ever gets. A real way out, and someone waiting on the other side of it. He drove back to New Jersey anyway. For years before any of that, Vito lives two lives that never touch. In one, he's a capo in the DiMeo family. A good earner, married, two kids, trusted by Tony with real responsibility. In the other, he drives into New York at night, into gay bars, into a version of himself nobody back home is allowed to know exists, not a small secret. An entire second identity, maintained for years, inside a subculture that treats homosexuality as close to the worst thing a man can be. It unravels almost by accident. Finn, Meadow's boyfriend at the time, shows up early one morning for his summer job at the Esplanade construction site and catches a glimpse of something he was never supposed to see. Vito, in a parked car with a security guard. In a moment that leaves nothing ambiguous. Finn sits on it, terrified, for months. But the truth doesn't actually need Finn to get out. Not long after, Vito's spotted at a gay bar in the city by Sal Iacuzzo, a soldier from the New York family out collecting on the club. That detail matters more than it looks like it should, because it's New York that finds out first. This stops being something Tony can quietly handle inside his own crew. It's already an inner family problem the moment Sal walks out the door. Word moves fast through both families, and it moves ugly. During the interrogation, Carlo Gervasi actually stops to ask Finn point blank whether Vito was catching or pitching, and once Finn confirms it, Carlo and Polly both react like the answer makes it worse, a warped little hierarchy of shame even inside something they already consider unforgivable. Carlo wants him dead outright. Phil Leotardo, whose family is connected to Vito's by marriage, whose wife is Vito's cousin, takes it as a personal insult to his own bloodline. For Phil, this was never a business decision. It's personal from the second he hears about it. Tony's more conflicted than almost anyone else in his crew. At one point, he even pushes back on the panic around him, noting there are gay men serving in the military now, that it's not the 1950s anymore. Not that Tony's become an ally. Vito's a strong earner, and Tony's instinct always runs toward what's profitable over what's morally satisfying to the men around him. But that instinct isn't enough to protect Vito from a crew that's already decided what needs to happen. So Vito runs, ends up in a small town in New Hampshire, far enough from everything he knows that he can start over completely. New name, quiet routine, distance from a life that would kill him if he stayed. And there, almost by accident, he meets Jim, a short-order cook and volunteer firefighter everyone calls Johnny Cakes, after the cornmeal pancakes he makes at the local diner. Vito recoils from him at first, defensive and afraid. It doesn't last. He eventually breaks and tells Jim the truth in a line that says more about his whole life than any monologue could, that sometimes you tell a lie so long you don't know when to stop. Jim doesn't want anything from him except him. No fear, no performance, no violence required to keep the relationship running. For the first time in his adult life, somebody loves the version of Vito that has nothing to do with what he does for a living. Most people in Tony's world never get an actual way out. Christopher doesn't. Adriana doesn't. Even Tony himself seems to understand, in his better moments, that there's no real exit available to him. Vito gets one, a full one. A town where nobody knows what he did before. A man who loves him without conditions. A legitimate, modest life sitting right there in front of him. And he can't hold on to it. It's not that honest work is literally impossible for him. It's that it costs him something he's never had to pay before. There's a defining moment where Vito takes a day job doing carpentry, sweats through what feels like half the day, and checks his watch. It's only 9:55 a.m. You can physically see the despair wash over him as he realizes he has to endure the slow grind of earning an honest dollar every single day. In New Jersey, money and standing come to him automatically, backed by fear, by reputation, by decades of built infrastructure that makes him somebody the second he walks into a room. In New Hampshire, none of that exists. He's just a guy doing manual labor for honest pay, invisible in a way he was never allowed to be invisible before. The relationship with Jim is real. The safety is real. But underneath both, Vito is quietly starving for the one thing this new life can't give him, the specific, intoxicating feeling of being feared, which turns out to matter to him almost as much as being loved. So he leaves, breaks Jim's heart without much warning, and drives back toward the exact machine that wants him dead. He tracks Tony down in a shopping mall of all places and makes his case, claims his behavior was some kind of medication-induced aberration, offers a large sum of money for the privilege of being let back in. Tony, weighing the political cost against the plain financial upside, actually considers it, floats the idea of setting Vito up running things in Atlantic City, far enough from the crew to keep the peace, close enough to keep earning, not far enough. Phil Leotardo was never going to let this end quietly, and once Vito's back within reach, Phil makes sure it doesn't. Vito was beaten to death in a motel room, brutally, with a pool cue used as part of the assault, a detail the show doesn't shy away from. because it wants you to understand this isn't a business execution. It's a punishment, staged specifically around what Phil considers the nature of the crime. The damage ripples outward from there. Vito's son gets bullied at school, spirals into vandalism, and his widow has to beg Tony for money just to move the family somewhere nobody knows their name. Both things are true at once. Vito is killed because of violent, specific homophobia. That part isn't ambiguous. And Phil's motive is stated about as plainly as this show ever states anything. But Vito also had the exit, had the man who loved him, had the version of life this whole show keeps suggesting might actually be better than the one everyone's trapped inside. Quieter, poorer, safer, real. And he traded it back for a shot at being feared again, in a world he knew, on some level, would eventually kill him for exactly the thing he could never stop being. The tragedy isn't just that the world wouldn't let him live. It's that some part of him never really wanted the life it was offering instead.